April 1945. What could make hardened German soldiers, men who had survived 6 years of fire, ice, blood, and screaming steel, run through gunfire just for the chance to surrender to an American they had called the enemy? By the final weeks of World War II, a chilling truth spread across collapsing German lines. If you had any chance left, any breath left, any luck left, you tried to reach the Americans before the Soviets reached you. And that desperate race across a dying continent became one of the most haunting human stampedes in military history. Germany was broken by then. Cities were piles of ash, railroads twisted like snakes, bridges shattered, and roads clogged with refugees, wounded soldiers, abandoned tanks, and horses dragging carts loaded with family photos and bread crusts. Adolf Hitler still barked impossible orders from Berlin, demanding armies that no longer existed to counterattack. But on the ground, soldiers knew the war was over. In the west stood American, British, and Canadian forces, battle-tested and advancing fast after crossing the Rhine in March 1945. In the east came the Red Army, furious after years of Nazi invasion, mass murder, burned villages, and millions dead across Soviet lands. German soldiers had heard stories, some true, some exaggerated, some whispered in trenches at night like ghost tales. Villages overrun, revenge killings, looting. Prisoners marched away into endless captivity. Fear became stronger than ideology. Even men who once believed in victory now believed only in reaching the Americans first. It happened everywhere. Officers who had once threatened deserters suddenly discussed surrender routes. Entire units ignored orders and moved west at night. Some soldiers ripped insignia from uniforms, hid SS tattoos, or changed into civilian clothes. Others painted white sheets on vehicles and prayed they would not be strafed before reaching Allied lines. Imagine the scene. Dawn fog over shattered roads, artillery rumbling in the distance, carts creaking, babies crying, and thousands of armed men walking with hands raised, terrified not of battle but of being captured by the wrong army. The Americans themselves were stunned by the numbers. In places along the Rhine and deep into southern Germany, columns of Germans surrendered by the hundreds, then thousands. One GI joked they were capturing more Germans than they could count before breakfast. But behind the humor was a grim reality. Many prisoners begged, pleaded, and even cried not to be handed over to the Soviets. Some offered intelligence, maps, weapons, anything for protection. American troops had seen savage combat from Normandy to the Ardennes, yet many were still surprised by how desperate their enemies had become. Why the Americans specifically? Reputation mattered. The U.S. Army was known for following the Geneva Convention more consistently than many armies of the era. Prisoners expected food, medical treatment, and a chance to survive the war. That hope spread like wildfire. A captured German who received cigarettes and coffee might tell another unit. A wounded man bandaged by an American medic could become better propaganda than any leaflet. Compared to starvation, revenge, or disappearance into Siberian labor camps, an American prison camp looked like winning the lottery in hell. But there was another side too. Not every surrender was easy, clean, or safe. Some German troops approaching Allied lines were shot by nervous sentries. Some Americans, enraged by discoveries of concentration camps like Dachau in April 1945, lost all sympathy for German uniforms. In several incidents after liberating camps, guards and SS men were killed on the spot. War had burned mercy thin, yet even then, ordinary Wehrmacht soldiers kept coming. They kept choosing the West. One of the most dramatic examples came during the collapse of Army Group B in the Ruhr Pocket in April 1945, when hundreds of thousands of German troops were trapped by American forces. Their commander, Field Marshal Walter Model, refused formal surrender for a time, but discipline was gone. Units dissolved. Men walked away in groups, tossing rifles into ditches and stepping toward American lines with hands high. Some laughed in relief. Some looked numb. Some simply stared at the ground like sleepwalkers. Model himself committed suicide on April 21, 1945, unable to face defeat. His soldiers chose life instead. Then there was the race from the east. Refugees and soldiers alike fled westward before the Red Army's Berlin offensive began on April 16, 1945. Roads became nightmares. Broken wagons, dead horses, abandoned children, shell craters filled with icy water, and bodies left where they fell. Luftwaffe aircraft were nearly gone, but Soviet artillery and roaming fighters struck roads packed with civilians. Witnesses described nights lit by burning villages and days filled with the smell of smoke and rot. German soldiers mixed into refugee columns to hide, hoping to slip through. Some wore stolen farm coats over uniforms. Some carried no weapon at all. The fear was simple. If captured in the east, they might never return home. Millions of German POWs taken by the Soviets would spend years in camps, and many would die there from disease, exposure, hunger, or labor. Soldiers knew enough to be terrified. In Berlin itself, Hitler demanded the city fight to the last man. Boys from the Hitler Youth, old men of the Volkssturm, wounded veterans, and shattered SS units defended ruins street by street. Yet even there, some tried to break out west once Hitler killed himself on April 30th, 1945. They knew Berlin was doomed. The Battle of Halbe, southeast of Berlin in late April 1945, became one of the war's most horrifying escape attempts. Tens of thousands of German troops and civilians tried to punch through Soviet encirclement to reach American lines farther west. Forests were blasted apart by artillery, trees exploded into splinters, wagons overturned in mud. Mothers clutched children while shells fell. Horses screamed. Men drowned in swamp water trying to crawl under fire. Survivors later spoke of roads paved with corpses and abandoned bread loaves lying beside severed hands. Yet still they moved west, because hope, even tiny hope, was west. Many never made it. Those who did sometimes collapsed at American checkpoints, sobbing from exhaustion. Even elite troops wanted out. Some Waffen-SS members, notorious for fanaticism and war crimes, also attempted to surrender to Americans. They knew Soviet capture could mean immediate execution or brutal imprisonment. But surrendering as SS was dangerous anywhere. Many hid insignia or lied about service. American interrogators became skilled at spotting them. Clean collar marks where runes had been removed, tattoo scars under the arm, suspicious silence when units were discussed. The mask often slipped. Meanwhile, ordinary American soldiers had mixed feelings. Some were relieved when Germans surrendered instead of fighting house to house. Others were bitter after losing friends. Still, many GIs remembered handing out rations to starving prisoners, sharing water, or joking with young Germans who looked more like scared kids than enemies. One American veteran said the strangest part of victory was seeing men who had tried to kill him yesterday smile when they saw the US flag today. Humor even survived in chaos. Prisoners asked for chocolate. GIs traded cigarettes for souvenirs. Some Germans learned to say howdy before they learned I surrender. But the darkness never fully lifted. Allied forces were uncovering concentration camps in April 1945, and the horrors inside changed everything. Emaciated survivors, piles of corpses, crematoria, the smell of death hanging over barracks. When German prisoners claimed ignorance, many Americans no longer wanted to hear excuses. That contrast defined the final days. On one road, a surrendering soldier got coffee and bread. On another, a guard faced instant revenge. The war had too many ghosts. Germany formally surrendered on May 8, 1945, known as VE Day. But by then, the Great Westward Rush had already answered the question in the title. German soldiers did not suddenly love America. They were not choosing friendship. They were choosing the version of defeat they believed they could survive. Between two endings, they ran toward the one with better odds, warmer food, medical tents, and a chance to someday see home again. It was fear, logic, rumor, and human instinct all mixed together in the smoke of a collapsing empire. And maybe the most tragic lesson is this. Men who once marched proudly for conquest ended the war begging for mercy from those they had sworn to destroy. So if you had been a 19-year-old German private in April 1945, hearing Soviet guns thunder from the east and seeing American tanks from the west, which road would you have chosen? And would you admit it in the comments?